Hello and welcome to the first Daily Rundown of a brand new week with me, Paul Burgess. On the Daily Rundown on Channel 7, we look at some of the big stories of the day and some smaller ones too that you might have missed. Before we get stuck into tonight's stories, let me tell you who's going to be helping us make sense of it all. Comedy man, it's Chris Keogh, and poet and stand-up comedian Maddie Howard. Welcome to you both. You're veterans of the show, aren't you? You've been on here many times.
Well, yeah, I have. I assume Maddie must have been.
I also have.
Yeah.
Never at the same time.
No.
So we've got a virgin introduction this evening. Good, fabulous. I'm liking it very much. But of course, it's not all about us on the Daily Rundown. You too can join in by tweeting us at the Daily Rundown. We'd love to hear from you. This is your chance to tell us what you think. Use the opportunity wisely, people. Right, time for our first news story. Comedy writer and actress Caroline Aherne has died at the age of 52. Caroline, star and writer of The Royal Family and The Mrs. Merton Show, had suffered from cancer 3 times. Caroline was also the narrator of Gogglebox, I forgot that, you know, and appeared in The Fast Show. Caroline's co-stars and fellow comics have been paying tribute to her, including her friend Noel Gallagher, who paid tribute to her at one of his gigs by dedicating a moving rendition of Half the World Away to the late comedy icon. Such sad news about a great Manchester talent, and so young, she was just 52 years old. Do you remember where you were when you heard the news, considering the spate of deaths we've had this year?
It's 2016 has been a bad year for anybody who's got talent, hasn't it, really?
Absolutely terrible, but you know, if there is an afterlife, can you imagine the music and theatre that's being created right now? Were you fans of Caroline?
I certainly was, yeah. I think virtually everything that she was involved with was groundbreaking and nothing less than sort of the perfect, pretty much, in terms of writing, casting, acting. Everything was superb.
Yeah.
Going back to, I'm sort of in my mid-30s now, so I can remember Mrs. Merton and all that from when I was younger.
Too.
And then obviously The Royal Family was when I was at university, and it was interesting for me because most of my friends went to like Eton and Harrow and places like that when I was at uni. Not now, I hang around with the kind of scruffs I grew up with now, but and so The Royal Family was so realistic.
Yes.
And it gave people a genuine insight into sort of like northwestern working class life, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, from what I understand of her work, it was really important in terms of social representation of like the working class, and the fact that she was a woman, sort of clearly influenced by Victoria Wood, and you know, she reminds me of her in a way.
Yeah, I can see some similarities there.
More
actually.
like being a northern woman and the kind of humour.
Yeah. I think they all influence each other, don't they? Kind of the big wigs of comedy.
I just thought of her because of obviously of how she passed away and how tragic it is. That, you know, cancer is really, and she had it 3 times, Caroline Aherne, and that must have been really awful for her.
She did a lot of incredible work as well for cancer charities, which I was unaware of until she died, really, and then found out that she did all this incredible work and was a patron for several charities, and even when she was very ill, she would go and speak at events. And but let's talk about let's try and smile when we think about Caroline, because you know, The Royal Family, I thought personally, was landmark comedy, like you say, Chris, because it had that kind of, it was very real.
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing. I mean, often people talk about The Office as being this land-break, you know, this sort of groundbreaking, realistic comedy. But you know, The Royal Family was I think it predated that.
Yeah.
And it was a very working class thing. It was just people sitting around watching telly, not saying much for a lot of it. You know, like an episode must have had about 15 pages of dialogue.
Yeah.
You know, but the direction and everything about it was, I can't, there's nothing you would say that could have been improved on or changed. You could watch it now and you'd think it had been written, you know, yesterday almost. You know, it was so fresh, and obviously if you look at who was in it in terms of the cast, you know, none of them were particularly famous at the time outside of sort of theatre school, you know, the sort of like theatrical world. But every single person in there was a household name, including, you know, the Jessica Hines who played the next door neighbour and things like that. You know, it was for me. So in my generation, I don't think it could be bettered, to be honest with you.
No, I mean, it was like, have you ever seen any episodes of the
Yeah,
Royal
I do
Family?
remember it. I was young when it was on, but I remember it being on, and certain scenes stuck in my memory, and especially the Christmas special, because that was always on.
Was that the one where the grandma died?
Yeah.
See, now I haven't seen that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and people are, I kind of caught random episodes of it. It had a very, very big emotional impact on me, the Royal Family, because the very first time I saw the very first episode, I said, that is my house. But the younger son of theirs was my nephew who lived with my mum and daddy's grandparents, and it was like, it was a beautiful, brilliant comedy representation of, like you say, working class families.
Yeah, and there was that scene as well in one of the where Denise, Caroline Ahern's character, goes into labour, and there's just Denise and Jim, Ricky Tomlinson's character, sitting in the bathroom on the floor, talking, and he's telling her about when she was born. And that, if you watch that without crying, then
you just reminded me of it. It's beautiful.
It's incredible, and I've seen Ricky Tomlinson speak about it since, and he's been speaking recently, and say that in essence, he because Caroline allowed him to do so and trusted who had been cast in it, he was in essence able just to speak from his heart and just remember his own daughter's birth, and it was just, and you could tell it was
method
like
acting.
I think it was done in one take. I'm sure that's what that was said. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it would be nice if it was true. It was literally proper. It was proper method acting by Ricky Tomlinson. He'd been in Brookside, but before that, but nothing really. And suddenly he was the representation of like my dad's generation of working class men.
And what did we think of Mrs. Merton?
I'm too young. I don't remember it. Sorry.
Mrs. Merton was brilliant. I loved Mrs. Merton. Obviously, the famous. I mean, they showed the first episode. You can watch it on iPlayer. Actually, the first episode.
I think I'd really like it, to be honest with you.
But I think what was said about it, and what was good, is that again, it sort of predated Ali G and all the sort of spoof interview things that came after it. Really.
I think the only one before that I know of straight away is Dame Edna. But and she was kind of modelled on the same kind of the older lady, lady in her prime, should I say?
And I quite like the fact that all the audience were sort of like older, like a sort of saga-outing sort of audience, weren't it? And she had certain characters within the audience who were real people and audience members, but who became sort of characters within the show, and it was superb.
I loved that with Paul Daniels' wife.
Oh, Debbie McGee. I mean, that's
brilliant.
The classic.
So tell me, what was it that attracted you to the millionaire Paul Daniels? It was just
I know about
brilliant.
That is genius.
Jackie Wright, who's a regular on this show and on Now We're Talking on a Saturday, she cites that so much. That was a kind of pinnacle moment for Caroline. But I mean, it's nice to know that she came from this neck of the woods as well.
Oh yeah.
And helped to put us more on the map than we already are.
I mean, from what surprised me was how young she actually was. To me, it makes it a tragedy, but it also makes it all the more remarkable. Then you try and work out how old she was when she was doing Mrs. Merton and the Royal Family and stuff like that. And I just think that by the time she was my age, she'd already achieved all these things, and it's quite humbling, really, in a lot of ways. But she's the sort of talent that I think possibly would struggle to make it today. Not because of the talent or the lack of talent, but just because of her background. Yeah. I don't think the opportunities are there really to do that. Back in the sort of like late 80s, early 90s, I think there were more people taking a punt on someone. Whereas now it's got to be, you have to put all these hours in and not get paid for it and all that. So I mean, realistically, who can afford to do that? So.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a much more difficult business than it used to be. I mean, I'm 47, I've been in entertainment for years, and I've definitely seen that transition of whether it be because we're all linked, comedy actors, presenters, singers. Yeah. The entertainment industry has become a more difficult kind of.
I think it's less egalitarian, really. I think there are fewer opportunities for working class people to get together and batter around ideas. Not necessarily because of just within the industry itself, but I think life in general is much more difficult to have the time to be able to do that. you have to pay to go to university and all that sort of stuff. So
and that's become what, £9,000 a
exactly.
year now.
So who realistically, if you went to university and you weren't from a background where you were effectively independently wealthy, who could afford then to go up to Edinburgh every year that you have to do and things like that?
Yeah.
And the working classes are looked at very differently and represented in the media very differently. So I think if you're trying to be openly, well, if you are working class, I am, and you're trying to make it in the media, you're probably tempted to cover up who you are because you're so misrepresented. Whereas with works like the Royal Family, you know, I was saying it's important socially because it's not making a mockery of people and telling them that they are a certain way. It's more authentic. And
you were laughing with them.
Yeah,
you were on their side rather than ha ha ha. Look at all these stupid people wasting their life watching telly.
Yeah.
You know, there was none of that.
People like things that feel warm, familiar to them, and I think that's what the Royal Family did, and especially for the northern working class people everywhere, it was, we do that.
Yeah.
We do exactly that. We do that.
But it also sort of transcended class, I think, as well, because it represented just actual human behaviour. So it transcended, you know, it represented people's feelings for one another, sort of like your frustration with, you know, like Barbara and Jim's relationship was brilliant, you know, because it was such that, you know, they loved each other.
We'll have to go to a break. I'm so sorry. We will come back to this very briefly afterwards, but it is time for a short break now. Me, Chris and Maddie will be back in a bit. See you soon.